Good afternoon, classmates. My group is made up of Felipe Villarreal, Nicolás Gutiérrez, and I, Santiago Viviescas. We are going to talk three news that are happening at the moment in the economy in Colombia during the last week. What comes next for the national economy in Duque last year? Two of great debts of the Iván Duque administration so far are not to have pushed for labor and penalty reforms. The employment landscape and fiscal problems will define the last year of this government and the coming of the economy in the short and medium term. Making an economic balance of the administration of Iván Duque leads, almost inevitable, to a first question. Does the pandemic affect the economy? Before the pandemic entered, the current government enjoyed a time which today seems far away, in which economic problems will not become capital letters in the book of historical crisis. The figure of 3.3% in GDP in 2019 boosted 2020 with good news in several sectors, such as tourism, which recorded record figures 2 years ago. At the time, the Finance Ministry came to say that growth would accelerate further in 2020 because the country's situation is on the right track. What came next is the well-known history. The pandemic took everything forward, including the positive economic outlook. 2020 ended a 6.8% contraction in GDP. There was a worrying growth in the fiscal deficit, and the conclusion of 3.6 million Colombians in the poverty line was recorded.
Second, new. Big oil companies like Shell and Exxon are returning to the country for exploration. Hydrocarbons, mainly crude oil and natural gas, will remain for a long time. According to Ecopetrol President Felipe Bayón's vaticinio, the backbone of the country's finance. But the top executive announced that the company will have a new horizons to return it into a comprehensive energy. Bayón successfully faced several years of complexity imposed by the brutal fall in international oil prices. Now, as the country looks at an oil bonanza, Ecopetrol announces alliance with multinational giants like Shell and Exxon to significantly increase investment in exploration and exploitation. Isn't ironic that Ecopetrol has just presented record figures in revenue and profit, just as its oil production declines? The lower production has two explanations. The first, the impact derived from the situation of public order in May and June, which affected the operation of some of our fields, and his second, the lower temporary production in the Castilla field. It recovers after overcoming a restriction in water management. The Carbon Neutral Alliance. We joined the more than 100 signatories of a Wheels agreement to support the national carbon neutrality program that seeks sustainable growth in the country. Ecopetrol is the first oil and gas company in Latin America to commit to achieving zero net carbon emissions by 2050 in line with our objectives of energy transition, sustainability, and climate change mitigation. How many barrels per day is the current production? At the end of the second quarter, production was 661,000 barrels of oil a day. At the end of June, 686,000 barrels a day were produced, showing a positive trend toward recovery. We maintain our plan to achieve an average production year between 690 and 700 average daily crude production.
This financial nuke is about nuke duration for investment of royalties in the regions. The income received by the state from the exploitation of new renewable natural resource called royalty resource caused a great debate in our country. For the majority, they are the way to regional development and economic growth. For others, nothing justifies the latent threat to the environment. The truth is that Colombia has generated significant income from this concept in the last 8 years. This resource, which assessed 56 billion pesos, reached the peak in the 2019 and 2020 billion with 18.5 billion pesos, which represented 1.3% of the gross domestic product in 2019. With the budget for the 2021 and 2022 billion, which is projected at more than 15 billion pesos. A new course begins for the investment of royalties in the regions, taking into account the entry into force of Law 2056 of 2020, which returns the positive aspect of the current regime and seeks to improve points related to distribution, key to offset the negative impacts in the producing regions. The commitment to improve the operation of the investment project cycle should also be emphasized, which relaxing function among its bodies, as well as priorities investment to guarantee coverage in sectors such as basic sanitation, electrification, gasification, road networks, education, connectivity, internet, educational, hospital and road infrastructure, and the generation of formal employment. As departments and from our federation, we will provide the support and the necessary technical assistance to assume the new challenge of the investment and execution of royalties in Colombia. The truth is that after 3 constitutional reforms, 2 legal regimes, and 60 agreements issued by the Governing Commission, a point of equilibrium is reached in the distribution of resources and a mixed operation of the 2 previous systems, based on lessons learned that we will surely help a better and more efficient execution of resources. We will move forward and launch serious democratic participatory, concerted and inclusive planning exercises in order to identify and prioritize investment in tables for each of the funding sources. Additionally, we will respond to the challenge of strengthening the technical teams so that the explaining exercises become processes of structuring and formulating projects, and to work hand in hand with the national government to optimize the tools that allow the effective use of the resource of the general royalty system, SGR, such as the timely reporting of information through the application of methods that are defined for this end. In addition, designate suitable entities that have adequate performance for execution. Undoubtedly, the new royalty regulation include a more social profile and showed from the outset the vocation to turn this resource into a vital source for territorial entities as a renewed dynamic force that will give impetus for the reactivation of our economy so hard hit by the pandemic. This social function is also evident in the preponderance that the unsatisfied Basic Needs Index (NBI) now has, which has more weight than the population index with 15% over 14%. Finally, the remaining 10% will be equivalent to the unemployment rate that is not more important than ever. In my capacity as Governor of Santander first and now as Executive Director of the entity, I have witnessed and participated in the effort made by National Federation of Departments to achieve a regulation of the SGR that responds to the needs of the regions and their communities, also from the synergies generated between the national government, the government, and the municipalities. These efforts translate into tangible achievements today. First, we succeeded in ensuring that the collegiate body of administration and decision for science, technology, and innovation continue. Science without a doubt today it is the reference of the triangle of good governance, which has the participation of governors, university, and national governments. Additionally, we achieved that the calls for the approval of projects we carried out in a concerted and harmonious manner with the Departmental Council of Science, Technology and Innovation, in which the regional and territorial vocation is fundamental. In that same measure, the real possibility of including digital financing in the investment policy of the CTEL fund was decided to face reality, and the technological advance that a result of the pandemic is more necessary than ever. Another significant development is related to the legal confirmation of the decision-making body for the resources of the Rio Grande de la Magdalena, made up of Core Magdalena, 2 governors and 2 mayors, which was previously regulated by decree. This will be a joint and concerted effort with the National Planning Department for the efficiency and effectiveness of the investment charged to these resources. Last but not least, for the first time, the Federation will have a voice in general policy, evaluating its execution and issue through agreements, regulation and guidelines of the administrative natural IMET, and ensuring the proper functioning of the system. The participation of the FND will make it possible to strengthen the voice of the regions in said instance, and will contribute to guaranteeing the territorial approach of the SGR. In conclusion, the reform conceived in this way is called to give greater participation to the regions, a fact that is aligned with the national purpose of generating a phase of successful economic reactivation to overcome the challenge imposed by the pandemic. We reached the end of your news broadcast. We hope you like it. Thank you for choosing us.